Hello, everyone. My name is Juliano. I'm very glad to be here at the Language Learning Summit. I'm a Brazilian translator, and that's why I'm going to talk to you about the relationship between language learning and translation. Well, but before starting, I would like to tell you a little bit about my background so that you know me a little better. Since I am Brazilian, my native language is Portuguese. And I have always liked to study Portuguese at school when I was a child or teenager. And when I was 14 years old, I started studying English in a language course, and I loved it. I attended that course for a few years, and when I finished it, I started studying French in another language school, and that was very nice. When I was at college, I could already speak Portuguese, English, and French in a very high level. And I decided to study computer science at college. I graduated in 2002, and then I started working as a programmer and systems analyst. That was something that I did for 6 years. And in 2008, I decided to work finally with languages, and I became a translator. That is, I am a translator now for 10 years, and I work for several translation agencies from all over the world, many countries, translating mainly from English and French into Brazilian Portuguese. That's a little bit of my background until I became a translator. Of course, that after that, I continued learning languages such as German, Spanish, and more recently Italian as well. But in order to work with translations, we only need to know very well our native language and one foreign language. In my case, the main two languages I work with are English and Portuguese, as I have said. Well, what do I have to say about language learning and translation? Well, regarding language learning, I like very much to attend language courses. That is, to go to schools and have teachers and classmates. That is, people I can practice the language with. Why do I like courses? Well, I started studying languages a little over 20 years ago, in the mid-1990s. And back then, the internet was not very fast or strong or popular, and I couldn't find social networks and apps to meet people online, such as things that we have today, like Facebook or YouTube channels and so on. And I had to go to courses. And even today, I like to go to courses because I think that teachers are a very good way for us to have guidance on how to learn a certain language. Of course, that today we have channels, we have italki, we can have classes online, and so on and so forth. And that's okay as well. But face-to-face interaction is always good, and I recommend that to everyone. But now let's talk about the relationship between language learning and translation. That's what I'm here for. And I have some questions here that were asked, and I would like to answer them. I'm going to read the first one now. And the first question is, how does a translator learn a language different from a regular learner? Well, because of the very nature of our work, we are always in contact with languages, that is foreign and native languages, and we go deeper, I would say, because a regular learner, when he studies a subject in a certain language, perhaps they would study a certain amount of words or expressions in that subject. That could be architecture or engineering, computer science, traveling, whatever. And a translator would be exposed to deeper information or to texts with more words about that subject. And then I would say that a translator would go deeper in that subject, would learn more and more words and expressions in that specific field. I would say that would be one of the differences. The other one is that translators translates many different kinds of things. That is, we translate texts from several subjects, including those ones we are not used to read. And then I would say that a translator learns a language in a broader way as well. That is, we learn words from many, many subjects that usually we wouldn't be interested in reading, right? And a regular learner probably would not have that opportunity or that need to study those words. And another aspect is that the translator is more focused in those words or expressions or rules of that language, because we have to write very well. We have to correct the text and write without any mistakes. And we have to proofread the texts and so on. So these are three main differences that I would like to highlight. Translators learn deeper, broader, and more focused, with more attention, because we need that for our work. And regular learners are just doing that not because they need to work with the language, but because they need to communicate. So if they learn less words or in a more superficial way or less subjects, it's okay, because that's all they're going to need. While translators, they need to work with that for more time, for years and years, decades and decades. And that's basically because of the kinds of relationship we are having with that language. The regular learner is learning because of fun or because of communication, not very precise communication perhaps, or there could be mistakes, but no one is hurt. But in the case of translation, it is a job, and we have to write well. We have to learn very well with attention. We have to read many different subjects throughout our careers, and we have to read them very deeply. I would say that these would be some of the differences between a regular learner and a translator regarding language learning. Yes. And the second question I have here is, how does a translator keep updated with the language? Or I could also say, how does a translator maintain his or her language level? Well, because we work with languages, we are constantly in contact with them. And that's one way to keep updated. That's one way to maintain one's level, right? I am reading and writing constantly in English, French, and Portuguese. And that's a very good way to maintain one's level. If you maintain the contact with people, with texts, with audios in those languages, that's basics for everyone to keep their level. How to do that? Well, I like to watch TV, the news, for example, in those languages. I like to read books. I like to talk to friends from countries where people speak those languages. I also participate in a polyglot club in my city. I live in Fortaleza, which is in the northeastern region of Brazil. And there are polyglot clubs all over the world. I would recommend you to find a polyglot club in your city, or if there isn't, I would like to recommend you to start one. You could find some people, some friends and colleagues who would like to practice languages, and you should go to a public space, for example, a square, and meet there once a week or once every 2 weeks, and you could practice the languages that you would like. I participate in the Polyglot Club in my city for 5 years now, and it's very nice to meet new people, to practice languages, and that's also a way to maintain one's level in a certain language. and also to practice and learn new languages if you would like. Another way would be to travel to other countries where the language is spoken. If you have that opportunity, that's always good. And nowadays with internet, we can talk to people on Skype or Facebook or any other social media, and that's very nice. So the way to maintain the level is to keep contact with the language. Keep contact with people who speak that language. Go to a polyglot club, read books, watch TV, watch series and movies, and so on and so forth. And I have a last question here, that is, how does a translator learn new specific vocabulary before going to a specific conference? Well, here in this case, we are talking about interpreters. I am a translator, but I am also an interpreter. I go to conferences and I do simultaneous interpretation for people. More and more. Since last year, actually, I started working in that field as well, because translation is written and interpretation is spoken. That's one of the main differences between these two activities. And how does an interpreter prepare to go to a conference? Well, we can receive materials from the organization of the event. We can see some texts from the speaker of that event. We can watch some YouTube videos from the person, for example, and we can get to know the vocabulary of that specific field. And that's how I do it. When I am assigned an interpretation job, I try to find texts and videos about the subject I'm going to interpret. And if I find videos from that specific speaker, it's even better, because then I will get used to his or her accent, to the rhythm of the speech, and so on. And we have to make glossaries, that is lists of words that are specific for that field, technical words in the foreign language and in the native language. And we have to do this list called glossary, and we have to study the glossary. And that's it. And also during the event, we can also use the internet and online dictionaries to make searches for specific terms. And also the other interpreter working with us is going to help us when we need help. And that's how it works. So to summarize how to search for a specific vocabulary, I just go after some texts and audios and videos about those subjects I'm going to interpret. And then I make a list that's called a glossary, and I study it, and that's it. I hope I could help you understand a little bit about what's the difference between a regular learner and a translator. And if you have any questions, you can always send me an email at julianotmartins@gmail.com. I also have a channel on YouTube where I talk about translation, but it's in Portuguese. It's called Viver de Tradução. In English, it would be perhaps a living of translation. And I give tips for translators and interpreters. And what else could I say? Well, if you want to learn a language, I think you should go for it. You should study it either in a course or by yourself, online or face-to-face. It's always good to meet people. And nowadays we have many kinds of apps to meet people online or offline. And I really recommend you go that way. And if you want to become a translator, you have to realize that it's not that easy. It's not just knowing two languages. No, you have to know them very, very well. And go search for jobs online or offline. And yeah, if you have questions, please, you can contact me. My name is Juliano. I am a Brazilian translator. And I hope I could help you. So see you next time. Thank you very much for your time.